I really appreciate everybody's time. If you feel like skipping directly to the story, please skip ahead to about the 6 minute mark. Thank you for your time. Hello, everybody, and I hope you all are having a great afternoon, or perhaps it may even be evening by the time this finishes processing. Today's episode is going to be sponsored by Jim Escobar. Big shout out to Jim Escobar. He is my first Patreon subscriber. I'm so grateful to have you. So, Jim has requested that I focused more on the three initiates Hermetic philosophy and the real world application, other than some of the random stuff such as horoscopes and the astrology stuff that I have been posting, and so that's what I'm going to do. As it turns out, that is my favorite subject, obviously, the whole reason I have established this YouTube channel. And so I am going to highly suggest, so mostly what I have been reading from, which I think what you are referring to, is the Kabbalion. And I would highly suggest that every single listener that I have go and buy a hard copy of this book, The Kabbalion. You can go and find a free PDF online, multiple places. Just go to Google and type in the Kabbalion free PDF, and you can find a copy of it. But I would suggest you could go and buy the cheapest version of this on Amazon. It is good to have a hard copy of this. It is one of those books that I can read once a month and I take something from it new each time that I read it. Each time that I read it, my life seems to improve a little bit more. It is one of my all-time favorite books, which is why it was the first one that I uploaded onto my YouTube page. So, big shout out to Jim. Really appreciate your support, and I'm going to do as you requested. So, we will have to break this down since I'm going to post these on YouTube. I'm going to break these down into about 4 or 5 30-minute episodes. What I have done, okay, so what the Kabbalion is basically is setting the grounds for initiation into the Hermetic philosophy. And so I went and found Manlyhall, the famous honorary 33rd degree freemason, Manlyhall. I went and found a lecture that he put together. It's not a lecture, it's actually a book that he put together that is the initiation into the Hermetics. And so I'm going to put in like a 4 or 5, 6, however long it takes, part episode on YouTube. But once it's complete and completely finished recording on YouTube, I'm going to go back, and for all my Patreon subscribers, I'm going to put it in one complete episode and add visuals for it and everything like that, and that'll be exclusively for my Patreon subscribers. So anybody who likes the kind of content that I'm producing and would like to see better value, then I highly suggest you go and support me in any way. I have Patreon. There are a few different options on there. I believe, let's see, I have my PayPal. PayPal is attached on here. It's up there on my banner if you go up there. Or I also have my GoFundMe attached. If you go into my GoFundMe, I have a list of everything that I would like to purchase. Every bit of the money that I make off of this channel, even after it's monetized, is going to go back into investing into this channel. So I have a lot of valuable content on here as far as information wise, and I would like the content to be overall, just better. And once it's better, then maybe we can attract more people, and hopefully we can get more people to start improving their own lives. This is this is all very beneficial information. So I'm very grateful for all of my subscribers. Um, I really appreciate the ones that go and leave me a thumbs up and leave me a comment to tell me what that I can do to improve myself. I've had a lots of great feedback, great constructive criticism. That's what I appreciate. That's how this channel is going to improve. It's what helps me become better overall in general as a person. So I really appreciate all of you guys. If you like the content, then feel free to share it. If not, then I'll leave a thumbs down if that's what you want to do. Either way, I appreciate your time with me here today. So let's get into the book. Introduction. Anyone who should believe to find in this work nothing else but a collection of recipes, with the aid of which he can easily and without any effort attain to honor and glory, riches and power, and aim at the annihilation of his enemies, might be told from the very inception that he will put aside this book, being very disappointed. Numerous sects and religions do not understand the expression of magic otherwise than the black art, witchcraft, or conspiracy with evil powers. It is therefore not astonishing that many people are frightened by a certain horror whenever the word magic is pronounced. Jugglers, conjurers, and charlatans have discredited this term, and considering this circumstance, there is no surprise that magic knowledge has always been looked upon with a slight disregard, even in the remotest times of the Magus, has been regarded as one of the highest adepts, and it might be of interest to learn that as a matter of fact the word magic is derived from this word. The so-called sorcerers are by no means initiates, but only imitators of the mysteries, who, counting partly on the ignorance and partly on the credulity of the individuality or a whole nation, in order to research their selfish aims by lies and fraud. The true magician will always despise such practices. In reality, magic is a sacred science. It is, in the very true sense, the sum of all knowledge, because it teaches how to know and utilize the sovereign rules. There is no difference between magic and mystic, or any other conception of the name. Wherever authentic initiation is at stake, one has to proceed on the same basis according to the same rules, irrespective of the name given by this or that creed, considering the universal polarity, rules of good and evil, active and passive, light and shadow. Each science can serve as good as well as bad purposes. Let us take the example of a knife, an object that virtually ought to be used for cutting bread only, which, however, can become a dangerous weapon in the hands of a murderer. All depends on the character of the individual. This principle goes just as well as for the spheres of the occult science. In my book, I have chosen the term magician for all of my disciples, it being a symbol of the deepest imitation and the highest wisdom. Many of the readers will know, of course, that the word tarot does not mean a game of cards serving mythical purposes, but a symbolic book of initiation which contains the greatest secrets in a symbolic form. The first tablet of this book introduces the magician, representing him as the master of the elements and offering the key to the first cranium, the secret of the ineffable name of the tetragrammaton, the Kabbalistic Yad-He-Vav-He. Here we therefore find the guide to the magician's initiation. The reader will easily realize how significant and how manifold the application of this tablet is. Not one of the books published up to date does describe the true sense of this first tarot card so distinctly as I have done so in my book. It is, let it be noted, born from the own practice and destined from the practical use of a lot of other people, and all my disciples have found it to be the best and most serviceable system. Tetragrammatron literally means the four-letter word. It was a subterfuge to avoid the sin of uttering the sacred name, Yahweh, Yahweh, or Jehovah, as it later became, when the vowels of another word were combined with the consonants of YHVH. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. But I would never dare to say that my book describes or deals with all this magic or mystic problems. If anyone should like to write about all this sublime wisdom, he ought to fill folio volumes. It can, however, be affirmed positively that this work is indeed the gate to the true initiation, the first key to using the universal rules. I am not going to not deny the facts of the fragrance being able to found in many other authors' publications, but not in a single book will the reader find so exact a description of the first tarot card. I have taken pains to be as plain as possible in the course of the lectures to make the sublime truth accessible to everybody, although it has been a hard task sometimes to find such simple words as are necessary for the understanding of all the readers. I must leave it to the judgment of all of you whether or not my efforts have been successful. At certain points I have been forced to repeat myself deliberately to emphasize some important sentences and to spare the reader any going back to a particular page. There have been many complaints of people interested in the occult sciences that they had never got any chance at all to be initiated by a personal master or a leader or guru, and therefore only people endowed with exceptional facilities, a poor preferred minority, seem to be able to gain this sublime knowledge. Thus a great many of serious seekers of truth had to go through piles of books just to catch one pearl of it now and again. The one, however, who is earnestly interested in his progress and does not pursue the sacred wisdom from sheer curiosity or else is yearning to satisfy his own lust, will find the right leader to initiate him in this book. No incarnate adept, however, high his rank may be, can give the disciple more his start than the present book does. If both the honest trainee and the attentive reader will find in this book all they have been searching for vain in all of the years, then this book has fulfilled its purpose completely. Part 1. Theory. Picture of the Magician. The first tarot card. Interpretation of the symbolism. Below you will find the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms expressed in a symbolic manner. The female on the left side and the male on the right side are the plus positive and the minus negative in every human being. In their middle is seen a hermaphrodite, a creature personifying the male and female combined in one as the sign of causality between the male and female principle. The electrical and magnetical fluids are shown in red and blue colors, electrical fluid being red, magnetical fluid blue. The head region of the female is electrical, therefore red. The region of the genitals is magnetical, consequently blue. As for the male, it happens to be in the inverted order. Above the hermaphrodite there is a globe as a sign of the earth's sphere, above which the magician is illustrated with the four elements. Above the male there are active elements, that of the fire in red and the air element in the blue color. Above the female there are passive elements, the water element in the green and the elements of the earth in the yellow color. The middle along the magician up the globe is dark purple, representing the sign of the Akasa principle. Above the magician's head, with the invisible ribbon for a crown, there is a gold-edged, silvery white lotus flower as a sign of the divinity. In the inside there is a ruby-red philosopher's stone symbolizing the quintessence of the whole Hermetic science. On the right side in the background there is the sun, yellow light gold, and on the left side we see the moon, silvery white, expressing plus and minus in the macro and microcosm, the electrical and the magnetical fluids. Above the lotus flower, creation has been symbolized by a ball, in the interior of which are represented the procreative, positive, and negative forces which stand for the creating act of the universe. The eternal, the infinite, the boundless, and uncreated have been expressed symbolically by the word with the dark purple to black color. The great secret of the Tetragrammaton, or the Kabbalistical Yad-He-Vav-He. Number 1. About the elements. Everything that has been created, the macrocosm as well as the microcosm, consequently big and the small, world, have been achieved by the effect of the elements. For this reason, right from the beginning of the initiation, I shall attend to these powers and underline their deep and manifold significance in particular. In the occult literature, very little has been said about the powers of the elements up to now, so that I made it my business to treat this field of knowledge still unknown and to lift the veil covering these rules. It is absolutely not very easy to enlighten the uninitiated so that they are not only fully informed about the existence and activity of the elements, but will be able to work with these powers in the future particularly. The whole universe is similar to a clockwork, with all its wheels in mesh and interdependent from each other. Even the idea of the Godhead, as the highest comprehensible entity, may be divided in aspects analogous to the elements. Details about it are found in the chapter concerning the God idea. In the oldest Oriental scriptures, the elements are designated as tattvas. In other European literature, they are only considered on the ground of their good effects, and in so far as we are warned against their unfavorable influence, which means that certain actions can be undertaken under the influence of the tattvas, or else must be omitted. The accuracy of this fact is not to be doubted, but all that has been published up to date points to the slightest aspect that the effects of the elements only. How to find out about the effects of the elements representing the tattvas for any personal use may be sufficiently learned from astrological books. I am pertaining far deeper into the secret of the elements, and therefore I have chosen a different key, which, although being analogous to the astrological key, has a matter of fact nothing to do with it. The reader to whom this key is completely unknown shall be taught to use it in various ways. As for the single task, analogies and effects of the elements, I shall deal with them by turns and in detail in the following chapters, which will not only unveil the theoretical part of it, but point directly to the practical use, because it is here that the greatest cranium is to be found. In the oldest book of wisdom, the Tarot, something has always been written about this great mastery of the elements. The first card of this work represents the magician, pointing to the knowledge and the mastery of the elements. On this first card, the symbols are the sword as the fiery element, the rod as the element of the air, the goblet as that of the water, and the coin as the element of the earth. This proves, without any doubt, that already in the mysteries of yore, the magician was disdained for the first tarot card, mastery of the elements having been chosen as the first act of initiation. In honor of this tradition, I shall give my principal attention to the elements, for, as you will see, the key to the elements in the Penkana, with the help of all which occurring problems may be solved. According to the Indian succession of the tattvas, it runs as follows. Akasa is the principle of the aether. Tajas is the principle of the fire. Wahu is the principle of the air. Apas is the principle of the water. And Prathavi is the principle of the earth. In accordance with the Indian doctrine, it has been said that the four somehow grosser tattvas have been descended from the fifth tattva, the Akasa principle. Consequently, Akasa is the cause ultimate and to be regarded as the fifth power, the so-called quintessence. In one of the following chapters, I shall inform the reader about this most subtle element, Akasa, in detail. The specific qualities of each element, beginning with the highest planes, right down to the grossly material level, will be mentioned in all of the following chapters. By now, the reader has surely realized that it is not an easy task to analyze the great mystery of creation, and word it in such a way that everybody gets the chance of penetrating the topic to form a plastic picture in it all. The analysis of the elements will also be discussed and in great practical value of them underlined, so that every scientist, whether he be a chemist, a physician, a magnetizer, an occultist, a magician, a mystic, a kabbalist, or a yogi, etc., can derive his practical benefit from it. Should I succeed in teaching the Renner so far that he is able to deal with the subject in the proper way, and to find the practical key to the branch of knowledge most suitable for him, I will be glad to see that the purpose of my book has been fulfilled. Number 2. The Principle of Fire. As it has been said before, Akasa, or the etheric principle, is the cause of the origin of the elements. According to the Oriental scriptures, the first element born from the Akasa is believed to be the Tahas, the principle of the fire. This element, as well as all the other elements, manifest their influence not only in our roughly material plane, but also in everything created. The basic qualities of the fiery principle are the heat and expansion. In the beginning of all things created, therefore, must have been fire and light. And in the Bible we read, Fiat lux, there shall be light. The origin of the light, of course, is to be sought in the fire. Each element, and therefore that of fire too, has two polarities, i.e., the active and the passive one, which means positive and negative. Plus will always signify the constructive, the creative, the productive sources, whereas minus stands for all that is destructive or dissecting. There are always two basic qualities which must be clearly distinguished in each element. Religions have always imputed the good to the active and the evil to the passive side. But fundamentally spoken, there are no such things as good or bad. They are nothing but human conceptions. In the universe there is neither good nor evil, because everything has been created according to immutable rules, wherein the divine principle is reflected, and only by knowing these rules shall we be able to come near to the divinity. As mentioned before, the fiery principle owns the expansion, which I shall call electrical fluid for the sake of better comprehension. This definition does not just point to the roughly material electricity in spite of its having a certain analogy to it. Everyone will realize at once, of course, that the quality of expansion is identical with extension. This elementary principle of fire is latent and active in all things created. As a matter of fact, in the whole universe, beginning from the tiniest grain of sand to the most sublime substance, visible or invisible. Number 3, the principle of water. In the previous chapter, we have studied the origin and qualities of the positive element of the fire. In this chapter, I am going to describe the opposite principle, the water. It is also derived from akasa, the etheric principle, but in comparison with fire, it has quite contrasting qualities. The basic qualities are coldness and shrinkage. The point in question are also two poles, the active one being constructive, life-giving, nourishing, and protective, whereas the negative pole, similar to the one of fire, is destructive, dissecting, fermenting, and dividing. That this element owns the basic quality of shrinking and contraction. It has produced the magnetic fluid. Fire, as well as water, are operating in all regions. According to the rules of creation, the fiery principle would not be able to exist at all by itself if it did not conceal inside its opposite pole the principle of water. These two elements, fire and water, are basic elements with the help of which has all been created. In consequence of these facts, we have everywhere to reckon on two main elements, moreover with the electrical and magnetical fluids which represent the contrasting polarities. Number 4, the principle of air. Another element derived from akasa is that of air. Initiated people do not regard this principle as a real element, but they will grant it the role of the mediator between the fiery and the watery principles, so that the principle of air will, in a certain way, establish the neutral equilibrium, acting as a medium between the active and passive activities of water and fire. Through the interaction of the active and passive elements of fire and water, the whole created life has become motion. In its meteorship, the principle of air assumed the quality of warmth from the fire and that of humidity from the water. Without these two qualities, any life would be inconceivable. These two qualities will also grant two polarities to the airy principle, which means, in the positive outcome, the life-giving polarity, and in the negative aspect, the destructive polarity. In addition to that, let me say that the mentioned elements are not to be regarded as ordinary fire, water, and air, which would solely represent aspects of the grossly material plane, but in this cause universal qualities of all elements are concerned. Number 5. The principle of earth. It has been said of the principle of air that it does not represent an element proper, and this affirmation goes for the principle of earth likewise. Now this means that out of the interaction of these three foresaid elements, the earthly principle has been born as the last element, which by its specific quality, the solidification, involves all the three elements. It is this quality, in its same particular, which has given a concrete shape to the three aforesaid elements. But at the same time, the action of the three elements has been limited with the result of space, measure, weight, and time having been born. The reciprocal action of the three elements together with that of the earth thus has become the tetrapolar, so that the earthly principle may be labeled now as a four-pole magnet. The fluid and the polarity of the earthly element is electromagnetic. All the life created can therefore be explained by the fact that all the elements are active in the fourth, i.e., the earth element. Through realization in this element came out the fiat, it shall be. Details concerning the specific influences of the elements in the various spheres and kingdoms, such as the kingdoms of nature, of animals, and of human beings, will be found in the following chapters. The main point is that the reader gets a general impression about the workshop and the effect of the electrical principles in the entire universe. Number 6. The light. Light is established on the principle of fire. Light without fire is inconceivable, and for this particular reason it has an aspect of the fire. Each fiery element can be converted into light, and the other way around. Therefore, light involves all the specific qualities such as shining, penetrating, and expanding. The opposite of light is darkness, which has come out of the principle of water. Darkness has the contrasting specific qualities of light. Without darkness, light would not only remain quite unrecognizable, but without darkness there would never be any light at all. Evidently, light and darkness must have been produced by the mutual play of the two elements, consequently those of fire and water. Light, in its outcome, therefore, has the positive quality, whereas darkness has the negative one. This interplay evidently is working in all regions. Number 7. Akasa, or the ethereal plane. Several times, while describing the elements, I have said that they proceed from the ethereal principle. Accordingly, the ethereal principle is the ultimate, the supreme, the most powerful thing, something inconceivable, the ultimate cause of all things existing and created. To put it in a nutshell, it is the causal sphere. Therefore, Akasa is spaceless and timeless. It is the non-created and the incomprehensible, the indefinable. The various religions have given it the name of God. It is the fifth power, the original power. Everything has been created by and is kept in balance by it. It is the origin and the purity of all thoughts and intentions. It is the causal world wherein the whole creation is substantiated on it. Beginning from the highest spheres down to the lowest ones, it is the quintessence of the alchemist. It is the all in all. Number 8. Karma. An immutable law, which has its aspect just in the Akasa principle. It is the law of cause and effect. Each cause sets free a corresponding effect. This law works everywhere as the most sublime rule. Consequently, every deed proceeds from a cause or is followed by a result. Therefore, we should not only accept karma as a rule for our good actions, as the Oriental philosophy puts it, but its signification researchers farther and is very deep one. Instinctively, it is men have the feeling that something good can bring good results, and only again all the evil must end up with evil, or, in the words of the proverb, whatever a man sows, that shall he reap. Everybody is bound to know this law and to respect it. This law of cause and effect governs the elemental principles as well. I have no intention to enter into details of this law, which could be expressed in a few words, as they are quite clear, so that every reasonable man will understand them. Subject to this law of cause and effect is also the law of evolution or development. Thus, development is an aspect of the karma law. Man. Number 9. About the body. Man is the true image of God. He has been created in the likeness of the universe. Everything great to be found in the universe is reflected, a small degree, in man. For this reason, man is signified as the microcosm, in contrast to the macrocosm of the universe. Strictly speaking, the entire nature manifests itself in man, and it will be the task of this chapter to inform about these problems. I do not intend to describe the physical occurrences in the body, because everybody can find information about it in any respective work. What I shall teach is to regard man from the Hermetic standpoint, and I shall enlighten interested people as to how to use this fundamental key, the influence of the elements on man, in the right way. A well-known maxim is, a sound mind is a sound body. The genuine truth of this aphorism represents itself immediately to everybody dealing with the problem of man. There surely will arise the question, what health is from the Hermetic point of view? Not everyone is capable to answer this question in the first instant. Seen from the Hermetic angle, health is the perfect harmony of all the forces operating inside the body with respect to the basic qualities of the elements. There need not prevail such a great disharmony of the elements to set free a visible effect which is called disease. For disharmony, in the form of sickness, is already an essential disturbance in the workshops of the elements inside the body. The main condition for the novice is to concentrate himself absolutely on his body. The outwardly visible expression of the body resembles that of a beautiful garment, and beauty, in all its aspects, is likewise an aspect of the divine nature of beauty. Properly speaking, is not only that which pleases us or appears to be sympathetic to our taste, because sympathy or antipathy are dependent on the interaction of the elements. Genuine health is rather a basic condition of our spiritual rising. If we like to live in beauty, we must form our house, our flat, or in this case our body, beautifully and fill it with harmony. According to the universal laws, the elements have to perform certain functions inside our body. These are mainly building up the body, keeping it alive, and dissolving it. The positive part in the body, the building up, is therefore the business of the positive or active side of the elements. The preserving part is brought about by the lightening or connecting part of the elements, i.e., the neutral, whereas the destructive or dissolving part of the body is realized by the negative qualities of the elements. It is obvious that the fiery principle in the active form, which is electrical fluid, will be exerted active, expansive, and building up the influence, and contrary will be the case in the negative form. The watery principle, in its active form, will influence the building up activity. In its negative form, it will produce the distinguishing, dissolving activity of all the fluids in the body. With the principle of the air rests the task of controlling the electrical fluid of the fire and the magnetical fluid of the water in the body, keeping them in balance. For this reason, it has been characterized as the neutral or meditating element. It has been said in the fundamental key about the forces of the principle of earth that it has the function inside the body to keep together the influences of the three elements. In the active form of the earthly principle, it has an animating, vivifying, and invigorating influence. And in the negative form, it is the other way around. The earthly principle is responsible for the thriving as well as the aging of the body. We could mention quite a lot of analogies with respect to the influence of the elements inside the body, but let it be enough with the foregoing explanations. Adepts of all periods never described the effects of the elements in particular, probably to avoid any misuse, but they did know very well all about it. They divided man in three basic conceptions, attributing the head to the fiery principle, the abdomen to that of water, and the chest to the airy one as the meditating principle between fire and water. How Very right they were with their dividing man becomes obvious at the first look, because all that is active or fiery takes place in the head. In the abdomen it must be very to the contrary, whether the watery secretion of the work of the saps, etc. The chest underlines the air and has a meditating part, because here breathing takes place quite mechanically. The earthly principle, which its cohesive power or ability of holding together represents the whole of the human body with all of its bones and flesh. Now the question will arise, where and how a kasa, or the etheric principle, occurs in the grossly material body. In doing some deeper thinking, everybody will be able to answer this question by himself. For the etheric principle is hidden in most grossly material, from in the blood, and in the seed, and in the repertorial action of these substances, in the vital matter, or in the vitality. As we have learned, the fiery element produces the electrical and the water element in the magnetical fluid. Each of these fluids has two pole radiations, an active and a passive one, and the mutual influences and interactions of all of the radiations of the four poles resemble a tetrapolar magnet, which is identical to the secret of the tetragrammaton, the Yad-He Vav-He of the Kabbalists. Therefore, the electromagnetic fluid in the human body, in its animism, is the animal magnetism, the odd, or whatever name it has been given. The right side of the human body is active electric, provided that the individual be right-handed. The left side is passive or magnetic. As for the left-handed person, the contrary will take place. The emanative power of this electromagnetic fluid is dependent upon the capacitance, the intensity of the action of the elements inside the body. The more harmoniously this action of the element is going on in the inside of the body, all the stronger and purer this animation will be. With the help of certain exercises, as well as by a correct attitude and exact observance of these rules, the capacitance, strength, and influence of this electromagnetic fluid, or odd, can be increased or diminished according to whatever necessity requires. The way of doing it will exclusively be illustrated in the practical part of the present work. The electrical as well as the magnetical fluid in the human body have nothing to do with the kind of electricity or magneticism that we know, although certain analogies exist. This law of analogy is a very important factor in the Hermetic science, and the knowledge of it enables the adept to perform great miracles with the aid of this key. The food contains the elements mingled with each other. The result of taking in food is a chemical process by which elements are preserved in our body. From the medical point of view, the taking in of any kind of food, together with breathing, causes a process of combustion. The Hermeticist sees far more in this process than just a simple chemical event. He regards this combustion as the mutual dissolving of food, just like the fire is kept burning by the fuel. Therefore, the whole life depends on the continuous supply of fuel, that is, the food and the breathing. To supply every element with the necessary preserving substances, a mixed food is advisable which contains the fundamental materials of the elements. If it were to restrict our whole life to a one-sided kind of food only, our body would, without any doubt, fall ill, meaning that such a kind of food would produce disharmony in the body. By the disintegration of air and food, the elements are provided with the supporting substances, and in this way their activity is maintained. Such is man's natural mode of life. If an element is missing, as it were the fuel, all the functions depending on it are immediately affected. If the fiery element in the body works exclusively, we feel thirsty. The air element makes us feel hungry. The element of water causes a feeling of cold, and the earthy element produces a tiredness. On the other hand, every oversaturation of the element causes reinforced effects in the body. A surplus of the fiery element creates a yearning for movement and activity. If this be the case with the watery element, the secretive process will be stronger. Any oversaturation of the airy element indicates that we must moderate in taking food at all. An oversaturation of the earth element affects the aspects of the sexual life, which must not necessarily find expression in the sexual instinct of the fleshly sense. It is quite possible, and this will especially occur in the case of elderly people, that they will feel a longing for increased activity and for the productive agility. In their active and passive polarity, the electrical and magnetic fluids have the task of forming acid combinations in all other organic and inorganic bodies. From the chemical point of view, eventually from the alchemist standpoint too, in the active sense, they are constructive, and in the negative sense, they are destructive, dissolving and disintegrating. All this explains the biological functions in the body. The final result is the circulation of life, which is brought into existence, thrives, ripens, and fades away. This is the sense of evolution of all things created. A. Diet. A reasonable line of life maintains the harmony of the elements in the body. As soon as a disharmony in the effect of elements becomes manifest, the elements being ex- extant into a weakened or prevailing way, special measures have to be taken as far as food is concerned, to carry the element back to their normal course, or at least to influence them favorably in this respect. Therefore, the most varying diets are prescribed for specific cases. In times long past, numerous observations led men to this opinion, of which they ignored the exact reason. If the disturbance of the element is such as to render visible that disharmony, it is no longer solely a disharmony, but we have to deal with an illness. This will mean that more drastic remedies will be necessary to re-establish the indiscriminable harmony, providing we desire bring the body back to its normal functions and complete recovery. All the curing methods known up to this day have been based on this fundament. I desist from particularizing such methods, as most of them are generally known. The natural therapy employs therapeutic effects such as bathing, poultices, herbs, massages. The allophist utilizes concentrated medicines, which are causing the effect of corresponding to the elements and disdain to repair health. The hemopath brings to life contrasting elements according to the vice. To achieve the balance of all this in danger and conformity with the polarity laws. The electrohematist, by use of his remedies, influences the electrical and magnetical fluids directly to the balance of the disorderly elements, according to the kind of illness, by a suitable reinforcement of these fluids. And so each curing method serves the purpose of restoring the distributed equipoise of the elements. By studying these influences of the elements on our body, the magnetopath or magnetizer has far more possibilities of influencing the body through his powers, especially if he is capable to awake the electrical or magnetical fluid consciously in himself, increasing and transferring it into the part of the body that has come into disharmony. I have dedicated a special heading of this book to the practical side of this treatment. So far, the total functions of the body have been stated in detail, but each part of the body is also, in analogy with the effect of the elements in the body, influenced by a specific element which finds its expression in the polarity of the responsive part of the body. It happens to be a very interesting fact that in the workshop, respectively, in the clockwork or the mechanism, which is to say in the human organism, some organs from the inside to the outside recursively own the electrical field fluid, and from the outside to the inside they possess the magnetical fluid, which affects the functions in the entire organism in the analogous and harmonious way. In other organs, the reverse process takes place, the electrical fluid operating from the outside to the inside, the magnetical one from the inside to the outside. This knowledge of the polar emanation is called in the Hermetic art the occult anatomy of the body, and the knowledge of the effects of this occult anatomy is extremely important for every adept who wants to know his body, to influence and to control it. I shall, therefore, describe this occult anatomy of the human body with respect to the electrical and magnetical fluid. That is to say, in the positive and in the magnetic sphere of action. These arguments will turn to the magnetopath's great advantage because he will treat the sick part of the body with the electrical or the magnetical fluid according to the center of the disease. But this knowledge will bring great profit to everybody else too. The head. The forepart is electric, the back of the head is magnetic, and so is the right side. The left side is electric, and so is the middle. The eyes. The forepart is neutral, and so is the background. The right side is electric, and so is with the left side. The inside is magnetical. The ears. Forepart neutral, back part also. Right side is magnetical, the left side electrical, inside neutral. Mouth and tongue. Forepart neutral, back part as well. Right side and left side both neutral, inside magnetical. The neck. Forepart, back part, and right side magnetical. Left side and inside electrical. The chest. Forepart electromagnetic, back part electrical, right side and inside neutral, left side electrical. The abdomen. Forepart electrical, back part and right side magnetical, left side electrical, the inside magnetical. The hands. Forepart neutral, back part also, right side magnetical, left side electrical, the inside neutral. The fingers of the right hand. Fore and back part neutral, right side electrical, left side also, the inside neutral. The fingers of the left hand. Fore and back part neutral, right side electrical, left side as well, the inside neutral. The feet. Fore and back part neutral, right side magnetical, left side electrical, the inside neutral. The male genitals. Forepart electrical, back part neutral, right and left side also inside magnetical. The female genitals. Forepart magnetical, back part right, left side neutral, the inside electrical. The last vertebrae and anus. Fore and back part neutral, right and left side as well, the inside magnetical. With the help of this occult anatomy and the key of the tetrapolar magnet, the adept may compile further analogies if wanted. The alchemist will recognize that the human body represents a genuine ether which the most perfect alchemists possess. The great work of the preparation of the philosopher's stone is visually performed. Herewith the chapter dealing with the body is finished. I do not assert that all this has been regarded, but in any case, with respect to the elements, I mean to say, the four-pole magnet, I have treated the most important problems and revealed the secret of the tetragrammaton in view of the body. Number 10. The roughly material plane or the material world. In this chapter, I will not describe the roughly material world, the kingdoms of minerals, vegetables, and animals, nor will I deal with the physical processes in nature, because everybody has already learned at school that there are such things as north and south poles, how rain originates, how storms are brought about, etc. The incipient adept might not be so very interested in these occurrences, but he will rather endeavor to know all about the material world by means of the elements and their polarities. It is needless to mention that on our planet there are fire, water, air, and earth, a fact absolutely clear to each reasonably thinking person. Notwithstanding, it will be very useful if the adept becomes quite acquainted with the cause and effect of the four elements and knows how to use them correctly. According to the corresponding analogies on the other planes, how it is possible to contact higher planes through knowing and grossly material elements will be reserved to a further chapter dealing with the practical use of magic. At the moment, it is important to know that of our earth, the working of elements in the subtlest form is evolving off in exactly the same manner as in the human body. By drawing analogies to the human body, one will certainly find how to draw the parallel to the elements and state that the analogy with the human body seems justified. In the chapter relative to the human body, we have been discussing the mode of life and the functions of the elements. With respect to the body and mind, if the adept succeeds in using the elements in the most subtle form, he will already be able to achieve wonderfulest things in his own body. And not only this, he can, in all conscience, affirm that nothing is impossible in this respect. The earthly element implies the four-pole magnet with its polarity and the effect of the other elements. The fiery principle in its active form causes the vivifying principle in nature, and in the negative form, the destructive and the disintegrating one. The principle of water in its negative form is operating the contrary effect. The principle of air with its bipolar polarity represents the neutral, the balancing, and the preserving essence in nature. The earthly element, according to its peculiarity of cohesion, has a basis of two great fundamental elements of fire and water, together with the neutralization of air of the airy principle. Hence, it must be regarded as the most grossly material element. By the interaction of the fiery and the watery element, we have, as already mentioned, in the connection with the body, got the magnetic and the electric fluid, the two basic fluids originating according to the same laws in the body and having their mutual effects. Both these elements, with their fluids, are the cause of all that happens materially on our earth. They influence all the chemical processes inside and outside of the earth kingdoms of minerals, plants, and animals. Hence, you see that the electric fluid is to be found in the center of the earth, whereas the magnetic one is on the surface of our earth. This magnetic fluid of the earth's surface, apart from the property of the principle of water, or the cohesion, attracts and holds all material and compound things. According to the specific properties of a body, which depend on the composition of the elements, each object, with respect to the electrical fluid, owns certain emanations, the so-called electric vibrations that are attracted by the general magnetic fluid of the entire material world. This attraction is called the weight. Consequently, weight is the appearance of the attractive power of the earth. The well-known attractive power of iron and nickel is a little example representing an imitation of which is happening in a big measure on our whole earth. What we understand on our earth of magnetism and electricity is nothing else but an appearance of the four-pole magnet. For as we know already, by an arbitrary pole changing electricity can be obtained from magnetism, and in a mechanical way we get magnetism through electricity. The transmutation of one power into another, properly speaking, is already an alchemistic or magic process, which, however, in the course of time has been generalized so much that it is no longer regarded as alchemy or magic, but it is simply ascribed to physics. For this reason, it is obvious that the four-pole magnet can be used here also. According to the law concerning the problems of magneticism and electricity, not only in the body as mentioned in the foregoing chapter, but also in the grossly materialistic world, each hermeticist exactly knows that what is above is also that which is below. Each adept who knows how to employ the powers of the element or the great secret of the tetragrammatron on all planes is also capable to achieve great things in our material world, things which the outsider world regarded as miracles. The adept, however, sees no miracles in them, for backed by knowledge of the laws, he will be able to explain even the most remarkable curiosity. Everything on our earth, all thriving, ripening, life and death depend on the statements made in these chapters. Hence, the adept fully conceives that physical death does not mean disintegration, passing into nothingness, but what we consider as an annihilation or death is nothing else but the transition from one stage into another. The material world has emerged from the principle of the akasha, i.e., the known aether. This world is also controlled and kept by the same principle. Therefore, it is understandable that it is the transmission of the electric or the magnetic fluid of which are based all the inventions connected with the communication at distance through the aether, such as radio, telegraphy, telephony, television, and all the other inventions to be achieved in the future, with the aid of the electric or the magnetic fluid in the aether, but the fundamental principles are the laws were and always will be the same. A very extensive and exciting book could be written solely about the effects of the various magnetic and electrical fluids on the grossly material plane, but the interested reader who has decided to walk on the path of initiation will not be deterred by the study of the principles. They will find out by himself all about the varieties of powers and perturbators. the fruits and the insights he earned. In the course of his studies, he will identify him amply. Alright, guys, well, I appreciate everybody who has stuck around for today's episode, and I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Big shout out to Jim Escobar. I really appreciate you, sir. I hope everyone has a lovely evening.